At the wedding in Cana, Mary famously asks her son for help when the wine runs out.
They have no more wine.
Jesus replies with words that may seem distant, saying,
"Woman, why do you involve me? My hour is not yet come."
Notably, he doesn't call her mother, but instead uses the term woman. Later, at the foot of the cross, Jesus echoes this language when addressing Mary. Seeing his mother and the disciple John standing nearby, he says,
"Woman, behold your son."
and to John, "Behold your mother." These moments, recorded by the Apostle John in his Gospel, present an intriguing and somewhat cryptic choice of language. Over the centuries, scholars and theologians have debated its significance and Mary's role in salvation history. Nevertheless, we can be very certain about what he meant by reading the writings of John's legacy bearers. The Apostle John left behind 3 faithful disciples to carry forward his intellectual and spiritual legacy: Ignatius, Bishop of Antioch; Polycarp, Bishop of Smyrna; and Papias, Bishop of Hierapolis. These men, during their formative years, learned from John and absorbed the essence of his teachings. Among them, Polycarp is regarded as John's closest disciple. In turn, Polycarp passed on these teachings to a new generation of followers, ensuring that John's wisdom endured. What did the early Christians believe about Mary and her role in the story of redemption? To answer this, we need to journey back in time, all the way to the beginning. The first book of the Hebrew Bible is called Bereshith, which translates into "in the beginning." With these opening words, the book of Genesis unfolds the familiar story of creation. On the first day, God created light. Over the following days, he shaped the sky, land, and all forms of life. On the 6th day, he completed his work by creating man, declaring his creation to be very good. The name Adam comes from the Hebrew word Adam, meaning man or mankind, and is derived from Adamah, meaning ground or earth, the material from which God formed him. Though man was made from dust, God saw that it was not good for him to be alone, so from Adam's rib he created a partner for him. At this point, Adam names his partner, not God. He calls her woman, for she was taken out of man. After they ate the forbidden fruit, tempted by the serpent, they were expelled from the Garden of Eden. What happens next might go unnoticed to the casual reader. Adam names his wife Hava, which in Hebrew means to give life. In English, she is called Eve, the mother of all the living. When John wrote his gospel, he used an approach that Jews of his time would have recognized immediately. His opening words, "in the beginning," mirror those of Genesis. Like the creation story, he describes the emergence of light, this time referring to Jesus. The parallels would have been crystal clear to early Christians, many of whom were Jewish. John's narrative then progresses from Jesus' baptism and reaches its climax on the 6th day with the beginning of his public ministry at the famous wedding at Cana. To better understand John's language, it's important to revisit Paul's letter to the Corinthians and the Romans. The Apostle Paul had already introduced the idea of Jesus as the new Adam by comparing Adam's acts of disobedience, which brought sin and death into the world, to Jesus' act of obedience, which brought forgiveness and life. Adam represents fallen humanity, while Jesus represents a renewed humanity. Through his sacrifice, Jesus reversed the damage caused by Adam, offering a fresh start and hope of eternal life for those who believed in him. The early Christians, guided by the teachings of the Apostle John, deepened the parallel by recognizing Mary as the new Eve. Just as Eve was taken out of man, Jesus was begotten by Mary. Like Adam, Jesus refers to Mary as woman until at the cross he entrusts her to John, making her the spiritual mother to him and to all his followers. The parallels extend further, developing into a rich and complex theology centered around Mary. This includes her role as Theotokos, or Mother of God, her perpetual virginity, and her Immaculate Conception. Alongside the understanding of Jesus as the new Adam, this tradition became known as recapitulation theory. The belief in Mary as the new Eve was unquestionably how the early Christians viewed her, and evidence of this comes from Polycarp's most prominent disciple, a figure of immense significance in the history of Christianity. Before him, there was no formal canon of the New Testament. Before him, the authors of the four Gospels were largely unnamed. In fact, many believe the Gospels of Mark and Luke were authored by Peter. Before him, the Gnostics were gaining ground, dismissing the importance and truth of the Old Testament. Marcion of Sinope, a heretic with a growing following, claimed the Old Testament was not authoritative. In the 2nd century, this man famously preserved the unity of the Church during the Quartodeciman controversy by convincing Pope Victor not to excommunicate the bishops of the province of Asia. His extensive and scholarly writings illuminated the truths of the faith and guided early Christians away from heresies. His name was Irenaeus of Lyon, and he is regarded as one of the most crucial foundational figures in Christianity. In his work Against Heresies, Irenaeus highlights Mary's role in salvation history by portraying her as the new Eve. Developing from existing writings from Justin Martyr and others, he draws a parallel between Eve's disobedience, which led to humanity's fall, and Mary's obedience, which contributed to humanity's redemption through her role in the incarnation of Christ. He wrote, "The knot of Eve's disobedience was untied by Mary's obedience. What the Virgin Eve bound through her unbelief, the Virgin Mary loosened by her faith." Irenaeus saw Mary as playing a unique and significant role in God's redemptive plan, making her worthy of honor and veneration, and reflecting the sentiments of the early Christian Church.